Good morning, everyone. This is the second day of this 4-day retreat here at the Franciscan Center in Tampa, entitled Key Points of the Path of Awakening, Teachings of the Zen Masters. Yesterday we were blessed with hearing teachings in the form of anecdotes, which are often more revealing than more formal teachings from the founder of Chan Zen Buddhism, the great Indian meditation master Bodhidharma. And then we also received some teachings from his first main student Wiko, and who later became known as the second patriarch. Bodhidharma had several, or many, I'm not quite sure, many students, of which I think 5 were key, but he passed the robe and the bowl, the formal transmission of the patriarchy, supposedly to Wiko. And so we were fortunate to hear those teachings yesterday. You practiced diligently yesterday. Last night we had an opportunity to learn more about and identify and practice resting in our natural mind. And as important as the experience of that is the significance and the consequences of knowing something about our unsullied natural mind. Many of us are only familiar with our sullied unnatural mind. We've always taken that to be our mind, and it is the job of the masters to point out to us the erroneous nature of our perceptions. So before we commence today, are there anything left over from yesterday, from your practice, from the teachings, anything not clear? Yes, Maria.
I don't know if it fits into this lecture, into this talk, but the state of our mind is important at the time of our death. I heard you say this morning. Why?
Well, so the question is, and again, that's another Dharma talk, but let me just say, so this morning in the small group, there was somebody there in their 80s, and we talked about death a little bit, and permanence, and just how important it was for her to really see death as always being around the corner. And she related how she lives at one of those assisted living facilities that also tie into nursing, that have the full range, and how it is almost a daily occurrence to see the ambulances come and take someone away. So it is not a matter of contemplation for her. And basically what I said to her, which I think Maria is talking about, is at her death, how important it is that she have a clear, open mind, and that therefore, not knowing when it'll come, it would be good if she let go of anything during the day that in any way compromises or pollutes that mind. Just let go. And so you're asking, why is it important? Well, again, this relates to what one believes happens at death, right? We certainly are all in agreement that at death, the physical body ends its sojourn here. That is obvious to everyone. And what is less obvious to everyone is the immaterial aspect of ourself, which is our consciousness, our awareness, which is not a physical entity. It's immaterial. And so it is not something that it is something that can be identified by materialists, but it really can't be investigated by material ways because it is immaterial. It cannot be found. Its evidence can be plainly seen, but yet when you look for the mind, you cannot find anything. And yet It's clearly here. So it is this immaterial mind that we are concerned with, because the person this morning stated that she was an agnostic about what happens after death. So that's kind of could be, couldn't be. So I certainly said, well, just in case it could be, it may behoove you to really care for your mind. And what I advised her was, just stay present, see what happens. Right. Anyhow, it's a long subject, but it's really in terms of that, because if one believes there's some sort of continuation, then obviously the shedding of the physical body is an ending of the physical sojourn, but not the end of the mind. And if one believes there is some sort of continuation in some form, it behooves us to attend to that moment. That's a quick one. Any other questions just in terms of the teachings from yesterday or the practices we'd be doing? Anything not clear? Good. So we will continue on. So today I want to share with you some teachings from two Chinese Zen Masters. The first one, if you've been around over the years, you've heard me refer to them, is Xiu Yin. Xiu Yin, name translates as empty cloud, was the preeminent great figure of Chan Buddhism of the past century. He actually lived 120 years. He lived right through all the political changes of the 20th century, including communism, the Red Guards. He lived into the 60s. So if you think of his age, he began in 1840, somewhere in there, and lived into the 60s. So he had and he was the great master, the great reviver, the great reformer, the great supporter, the tireless Buddha of modern-day Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, Buddhism too. I mean, the whole thing, because in Chinese Buddhism, as in other kinds of Buddhism, it's not so delineated. So you would often find that people practice various traditions together, and very much the most common practice in Chinese Buddhism was what's called Pure Land Buddhism, and so it's very much that the Chan masters would teach kind of both, depending on who they were dealing with, and often put them together. So anyhow, his life story has been translated. So it's called Empty Cloud. It's in sort of a year-by-year account. I mean, he was the real thing. I mean, not only was he this great supporter, builder, reformer of Buddhism, but he was a great meditator who would go on retreats for years and live in the most difficult circumstances. And he was the real deal, so to speak. So this is from a talk he gave to I think the beginning of a 14-day retreat. And it begins. He said, "Many people come to ask me for guidance. This makes me feel ashamed. Everyone works so hard." So he's talking about, just observing what's going on in the monastery. Everyone works so hard here, splitting firewood, hoeing the fields, carrying soil, moving bricks, and yet from morning to night not putting down the thought of practicing the way. Such determination for the path is touching. I, Xiu Yin, repent my inadequacy on the path and my lack of virtue. I am unable to instruct you and can use only a few sayings from the ancients in response to your questions. And then he says, and we'll just spend a little time, he says there are 4 prerequisites concerning methods of practice. So before he talks about practice, he says there are 4 prerequisites. So please listen and think, whether you have undertaken these prerequisites. The first, he said, is deep faith, confidence, trust in the law of cause and effect. Okay? Everybody knows cause and effect, which is sort of in Buddhism, it is sort of the operating principle of phenomena. Things arise because of causes and conditions. They don't arise out of nowhere. Nothing doesn't, something doesn't come out of nothing. So everything in the universe, everything that arises because of causes and conditions. Okay? This is the law. And to have a deep trust and faith in it really allows one to approach the world, the state of the world, allows us to approach individuals, the state of all the individuals of the world, with wisdom and understanding and a degree of intelligence, because we understand everything, everyone, just like the trees and the flowers and the animals. Human life is just a product of causes and conditions. If you want to know why things are the way they are in any realm, look for causes and you'll see what we're experiencing, what's going on right now is just the effects of past causes. Right? They may not all be known. There may be many, they may be complex, it may be simple, but it is there. But most importantly, for us as practitioners, especially people on a meditative retreat, is to understand that we too are simply a product of our causes and conditions. Many people think, well, this is who I am. Right, I'm like this, or I'm like that, or this is the way my mind is, or this is how my personality is. We talk this way, but that's not true. We are the product of causes and conditions, many causes and conditions, right? And if you had been raised in a totally different setting, you might, there may be some characteristics, we know, these studies with identical twins show there are some characteristics, but it also points out that many aspects of who and what we are is conditioned by, who we were raised by, all these, all the experiences we had as childhood and all through. If you want to know why you have the mind you have, it is because of the past. Okay? There is nothing arising in your mind that has not been conditioned by past causes. Okay? So does, it's like, I guess the main thing is like, I guess to put it very bluntly, it's like, get over it. Stop all your self-analysis, stop all your self-abnegation, stop, and understanding, yes, we are the way we are because of causes and conditions. If those were wonderful causes and conditions, everything's wonderful. If those were miserable causes and conditions, we're miserable. Okay? It's as simple as that. Now, the only issue is what? What am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do with this package that I've inherited? And more importantly, since I understand everything is causes and effect, what causes do I want to begin to make today so my future is different? Because I understand my future relies on the causes I am making today. So if I'm continuing the same inner dialogues, if I'm continuing the same patterns, etc., that I've always done, you can be assured what your future is going to look like. You can even be assured, if you believe in lives, many lives, what your next lifetime is going to look like. If you have any concerns about, wanting to continue this pattern for lifetimes, you may think about that. Okay? So, understanding causes and conditions makes you understand nothing is permanent, nothing is fixed, as Zen Master Dogen said last night. Impermanence is also one of these fundamental laws and goes in tune with cause and effect. Right? You understand that transformation is not a mystery. It's not a hit or miss, right? We can go about it in a very methodical way. Right? If we want to have certain effects in our life, if we want to be a certain kind of person, if we want to show up in the world in a certain kind of way, if we want to have a certain kind of mind, we have to what? It will not come out of nowhere. It's not just going to arise one day, full blown. Right? Everybody has gotten over that one? Right? It's not going to happen. It would be nice if it happened. Right? But it doesn't work that way because our mind is simply a product of causes and conditions. It doesn't have a mind of its own. Right? So again, that's very liberating because if you look at your mind and if you look at things and go, wow, it's kind of a mess, or a lot of suffering, or a lot of negativity, or a lot of unwholesomeness, or a lot of, okay, look what has caused that, look what it is the effect of, and make sure that you very diligently stop making those kinds of causes. It's really that simple. And that is why he says, number one, right, the prerequisite for practice is deep confidence in the law of cause and effect. In its sense that you understand, that's how it operates. If I really very diligently go about a process of kind of retraining the mind, I will feel differently. I will be different. I mean, it's that simple, right? The path to becoming a Buddha is that simple. That's why the Buddha says everybody can become a Buddha. Right? One, because one intrinsically already has the nature of a Buddha, and now the masters have revealed to us the path to its unfolding. Right? Oh. Could it be that simple? There are many people in here who believe it's not that simple, who have made it very complicated, very complex, very difficult. Right? But it's not. It certainly takes diligence and vid. It takes, but, look at all the effort we put into maintaining misery. Look at all the effort and energy we put into worldly goals. Right? Many people in this room say, yeah, I really work hard in my life. I've worked hard in my life. Well, just think if you had worked this hard on your Buddha path. How many here would already be Buddhists? If you'd put that energy, all that energy you've put into work, all that energy you've put into relationships, all that energy, all that diligence, all that vigilance. But if you would put that into Dharma practice. So it's something to reflect on. Strict observance of the precepts, the mindfulness trainings. It is important that we, stop doing unwholesome things and start doing more wholesome things. That's in a nutshell is the precepts. If we continue to do unwholesome things and negative actions, we'll have a lot of we'll just have a lot of bad karma. We'll have a lot of negativity in ourselves. We'll have a lot of instability in our relationships, and it'll be very hard to stabilize the mind if things are always in an uproar because of our unskillful, unwholesome actions of body, speech, and mind. Strict observance of the precepts. His third is immovable faith. Faith, I really call that confidence or trust. It's a matter of translation in Buddhism. Anyhow. So, immovable trust, faith, confidence. In what? In that we are Buddhists. That's the trust. that when the Buddha and all the masters say, we all have the Buddha nature, unsullied nature. It has never changed. It is still here. We believe that, even if it, that's what faith means, right? We often have to, when we have faith, we often have to have faith in something that is beyond our present experience, right? So we have to take on faith, the teachings of the Buddha and 2,600 years of masters who've come to awakening, who've all said the same thing. Is this something you can trust? Is this something that you can have confidence in? That they're not hucksters? They're not making any money on us? There's no reason for them to do it. They're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, their compassion. They are, right, telling us. Right? Everyone has the nature of a Buddha, and everyone can become a Buddha, an enlightened one. Right? Do we really have confidence in that? Do we really trust that enough that we're going to make some changes in our life? And then the fourth is choosing a Dharma door method of practice. So again, we, once we've kind of have the first three, again, what is our practice going to be? Right? Is that clear? We have to make a choice. Many people these days, they what? They kind of put it together, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. One day we feel like doing it this way, one day we feel like doing it that way, right? We kind of skip around a lot. Again, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, right? But if the other three are true, then you got to settle down, right? You got to choose a Dharma path, and you got to follow it. That's what Zen Master Dogen said last night, right? Isn't that what he said? He said, anybody. Remember that he was saying? Anybody, even if you're in inferior capacity and blah, 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 even if you're evil, even if you're the most unwholesome person, if you settle down and you study with a teacher and you do the practice for decades, you will come to enlightenment. Right? That was Zen Master Dogen, so don't take it from me. All right? Take it from the big guys. All right? So, we have to, do we believe it? Do we really reflect on that? So these are not something for you to go, Right? These are, reflect on these. Deep faith, trust in the law of cause and effect, strict observance of the precepts, immovable confidence in one's own true nature and capacity to awake, and choosing a Dharma door method of practice. Please reflect on this, okay? Don't just... because these are prerequisites, he's saying. Right? So he's obviously saying, it's like, college or something, you'd like to take that course, but the teacher says what? You have to take the prerequisites, right? You haven't had the prerequisites. Go take the prerequisites, because the prerequisites are the basis for understanding what's being taught in the course, right? So we all have that experience. So that's what... it's the same thing, If you want to succeed in the practices, the meditative practices, please make sure that you have the prerequisites. Okay? Yes?
So the last one, choosing the Dharma door, is that meant to be as specific as, perhaps you take a certain path of practice every day with, for example, preliminaries and measurables or certain ways? Is it meant to be that specific in terms of the path of practice?
Yeah, it's so the question is, what exactly does a path of practice means? So it means that one is clear, right? One knows. Let's say one wants to climb a mountain, okay? And there are many ways, and many maybe different kinds of trails, right? you have to decide which trail I'm going to follow. Is that clear? They're different. They all maybe get to the same place, but it's not like you walk 3 days on this trail, then let me get down, go try a couple of days on the other trail. You may have an interesting hiking experience, but you're never going to get to the top, right? So again, choosing a Dharma door practice, it means I understand the path, the practice path that will take me to where I want to go. I've made a choice. Now, within that choice, there may be different practices, like you're saying, that one is doing. In the same way, to climb the mountain, there are probably many different experiences and different types of abilities and competencies that we need, depending on the terrain and everything else, right? But, basically, we have chosen the path. If you're going up this way, you don't get the guidebook for that way. Right? You get the guidebook for this way. And it's a waste of time to read the guidebook about that way. Right? Because you want to become an expert in this way. Right? And if you're going to get a guide to go with you, you want to get a guide who's an expert in this way, not a guide who's an expert in that way. Right? It's kind of simple, right? Good. Any other questions? Anything not clear about prerequisites, the need for prerequisites, etc.? Yes, Elena. Good. Those are the best questions. We always need somebody who's willing to be a fool, and I'm glad you volunteered.
Fred, I've chosen to follow your so
Well, I guess.
how to explain that.
Oh, well, let's. So the question is, she said, Fred, basically she says, Fred, you're my teacher and I'm following you, but what do you call this path? Well, I would call it the Buddha path. Okay, in a certain way, because of my own background of sort of, practicing first in very traditional kind of Japanese Zen and then Vietnamese Zen, but really not Vietnamese Zen, Thich Nhat Hanh Zen, very much his own, steeped in tradition, but his own way. And of course, I've also practiced in the Dzogchen, the Great Perfection Path. So I sort of teach all of them, but I try to do it in a way that is meaningful and takes one to where one wants to go, because I see the commonality of them. So the thrust is always in to awaken the student and to help the student develop. But it's also a sequential path, a developmental path, where I know that people are at different levels, right? Okay?
That helps because I've been talking with someone who really is just so wrapped up in the thought of Zen.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've come to the realization that what I'm doing is a belief, it's a step by step.
Yeah, so this is, again, to me, it's, the wonderful thing that I've learned since I've had the opportunity of studying somewhat deeply in these three different traditions, but also have been willing to read and expose myself to the breadth of Buddhism, is to find the commonalities. And there are commonalities, because we have to understand that in Asia, because of causes and conditions, certain traditions went here, certain traditions went here, certain traditions went over here, certain traditions got very mixed up with the indigenous cultures and ways, other ones didn't. So, as well as, they weren't there was no internet, there was no modern communication. So most of these countries and these lineages developed very much on their own, not really knowing anything about the other ones. Or if they did know it, they had a lot of distorted ideas, right? And I remember just when I began to practice back in the 60s, you talk to some of them and they go, well, that's, you talk about Tibetan Buddhism to somebody from Sri Lanka or Thailand and say, well, that's not Buddhism. I don't know, that's some kind of debased shamanic kind of Hindu tantric. I mean, that's what the people would, they had no idea that, what a vast corpus of practice was in Tibetan Buddhism. In the same way, people and Mahayanas talk about the Hinayanas, they're just small vehicle people, you know what I mean? So, so again, I think what's happening, and I think this is the wonderful advantage we have in terms of American Buddhism, is that we can have deep respect for the traditions, but we can see they're all just what? It's like everybody's got their own franchise, right? And because they have, because they're heirs to franchises, I understand why they want to continue their franchise, right? But we don't have to. We can really take what's meaningful. I mean, it's not like we create our own Buddhism. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that at all. I mean, we have to really, really let the tradition sink in and the wisdom and experience that has preceded us. But it's a new age, and this is a new culture, and these are new times, and Buddhism has always, had to, revive itself. So, and we live in a time where we see sectarianism. Political, religious, is destroying us. So I think there's sort of to be non-sectarian is probably healthy for our times, and to see the goodness in all the traditions. Does that give you an answer? I don't want to get sidetracked. All right, but this is not on that, on
Yes.
Yes.
In connection to the prerequisites.
Yes.
I've read that Thich Nhat Hanh has said, particularly to Christians, is we would like you to we're not looking for converts.
Right.
We would like you to stay on the path to become the most awakened, passionate Christian that you can be. How would that play in the prerequisites as a theist, not just an agnostic, but someone searching for that path?
Well, again, I don't think there's anything he says. So the question is, he quotes Thich Nhat Hanh, who doesn't say, to follow the Buddhist path, you have to give up your whatever your other religion is. That practicing the Buddhist path, you can stay in your religion, and hopefully will only make you a better whatever, a better Christian, a better Jew, a better Muslim. And again, if you think about what you've heard here, the law and the cause and effect has no religious connotation. It is just a law of life. If it is a true law, right, then it has to be as true for you as it is for me, or it's not a law. If it's only true for me and not for you, then how can we call it a law? You know what I mean? There are certain things like cause and effect, like impermanence, things like that. We would say this is just anybody can observe it. It's like Dogen said last night. He said, impermanence is not a contemplation. Look around you. You'll see it. It's real. Okay? A strict observance in the precepts, I would imagine you have your own moral code and ethical code. That's really what he's saying. So, immovable faith in your own nature, your own pure nature. If you want to call it your God nature, your Christ nature, you know what I mean? Those are just words, right? And we don't, it's when we get hung up on words, right? People kill each other because I call it God and you call it Allah. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, it's pointing to the same thing, right? So, and the same thing with choosing a path of practice. Okay, so I mean, is that clear? I mean, it's, people, it's like if you ever wanted to become a formal Buddhist, right? Which we do, once or twice a year. You take the precepts, you take refuge. no one has ever asked, do you have another religion and you have to give it up? See, that's what we're used to here in the West. But if you go to Asia, you find people, they're Buddhist, they're a little bit of Confucianists, they have a little Taoism mixed in, It's, it's sort of like I said, Xiu Yin and a lot of the Zen Masters also practice Pure Land. It's almost like Catholicism, you know what I mean? We're not used to that because we're very sectarian here in the West. Traditionally, it wasn't that way in other parts of the world. It's not as if people don't take their way seriously, but they're not so cut and dried. They're willing to take things from others. Does that make sense? So we're also, we this is our culture. So we tend to misunderstand this. I mean, like, you must be a member, right? Has anybody ever asked you what religion you practice? No. I mean, it's like, you see, it's like, it doesn't matter, does it? Or it doesn't matter to me. It matters you're here. I have no idea what people do. Right? Okay. Good. Yes.
So would it be enough to practice meditation and mindfulness without having the label to call it Buddhist?
Yeah, one doesn't. So the question is, does No, you don't have to wear the pin. So that's, if somebody asked me, are you a Buddhist? I would say, yes, I'm a Buddhist. I mean, I'm not ashamed of being a Buddhist. And I think it's a very meaningful, it is my way. It is the way I live and practice. It's the body of teaching and practice that guides my life. So therefore, I would call myself a Buddhist. I mean, I don't even think about it, right? Whether you do or not, it depends on you. I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, no one is asking you to call yourself a Buddhist here, are they?
No, but, I was,
Well, what's really your question, Karen?
well, I was raised Catholic.
Yeah. I'm sure anybody else in this room raised Catholic? Okay. You're not alone.
And I've been meditating since I was 10. I feel very strongly against religion.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a meditation practice that I've been doing for years.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have a label. I'm a member.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that, but I would ask you.
And I actually believe in quantum physics.
Oh, you're not alone here. Anybody else believe in quantum physics here? There you go. See, even more than Catholics, we have quantum. Yeah.
That's my dilemma.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be a dilemma. It should be something that, again, we have to, there are a lot of people who get burnt in life, right? There are people who've been burnt by their religion that they were brought up in, right? So we go, right? There are people who get burnt in relationships. Ooh, not going to commit. I got burnt. You know what I mean? So we we have to be careful, right? That we don't do something that's creating an issue where there isn't an issue, right? Again, I would just ask you to look at that. As I say, calling yourself whatever you want to call yourself should be something that's congruent with you, right? I call this a flower because generally things that show up and manifest like this, we call flowers, right? It's not a big deal. If you want me to call it something else, I'm very happy to call it something else. I still know that hasn't changed that, is it? Right? So if I call this a vegetable, does it change? You see, it's still this. You see, you are you, right? And that's what's essential. How you want to, what label you want to put on yourself should be something that fits you, right? I mean, if it really fitted you, that your religious spiritual life was really guided by Buddhism, right? Then you would say, yeah, I follow the Buddha way. I mean, actually, in Asia, I don't know what it is in Vietnam, but I know in Tibet and other places, there's no word for Buddhist. There's a word for saying I'm a follower of the Dharma. I follow the Dharma. But there's no word for I'm a Buddhist. It's just interesting, right? And so it's sort of, I don't know, in Vietnam, is there?
We call Buddhist, so we won't go to the temple and call Buddhist.
Yeah, but what is the actual word? If somebody said in Vietnamese, what path, what religion do you follow? What would you say in Vietnamese?
In Vietnamese,
Uh-huh.
Vietnamese Buddhist, Phật tử,
So you'd say, which means what?
Phật tử,
Which means
Buddhist.
Buddhist or follower of the Buddha. Anyhow, it could be different. But I know in Tibet, they say, I'm a follower of the Buddha way. This is different. We don't say, so you're like us. Okay. But anyhow, it's, does that,
Yeah, we don't say in Vietnam, so we always say Buddhist. So
Buddhist.
if we go to the temple, we follow Buddha teaching and we say
Uh-huh.
Buddhist.
Uh-huh. And what if you go to the Confucius temple?
Like,
Confucian, anyhow, it's another discussion. Yeah. That's his Chinese name. Good. Yeah. So again, the Buddha taught a way of awakening, right? He really didn't teach a religion because he clearly said, I'm not a god. The Buddha said, I'm not a god. Don't treat me like a god. I am somebody who is awake and I am showing you the path to awakening. That's what the Buddha, that's what he said, right? So it's a path to awakening, right? When you go to the temple, it's really more about worship and prayer, right? So that's more like a religion, right? But actually, if you go back to the Buddha himself, he taught a way of awakening, a way of living, right? And so I think that's probably more what we do here. We teach the Buddhist path of awakening. Okay? So let's get into Xiu Yin. So his next words were how to, once we've met the prerequisites, how to start the practice. Distinction between host and guest. How should one begin to practice? So many of us have begun our meditation practice without this. Okay, it's interesting. We're just going to jump right in. He says, how should we begin? In the Surangama assembly, Surangama is one of the great Mahayana sutras, the Surangama Sutra. In the Surangama assembly, Kaundinya, the honored one, mentioned the two words guest and dust. This is where beginners should begin their practice. He said, please pay attention, a traveler who stops at an inn may stay overnight or get something to eat. When he or she are finished, rested, they pack and continue their journey, for they do not have time to stay longer. If they were the host, they wouldn't have any place to go. The reason, he or she who does not stay is called a guest, because not staying is the essence of being a guest. Clear? You understand? Yeah. So a guest is what? Somebody who temporarily comes to you to visit you, to go to a hotel. We call that a guest, right? Right? The host is the person who stays. They're the hotel keeper. They're the innkeeper. They're you in your home, right? So the guest is defined by the fact that they do not stay. That is the essence of being a guest. I mean, it's kind of very simple, but let's belabor it. All right, is everybody clear? The essence of what it means to be a guest is you don't stay. Right? If your guests want to stay, you might say to them, what? Pay rent. Well, your background is economics, isn't it? Okay. Pay rent, or perhaps you'd rather say to them, what? Your time is up. Your 3 days is up, right? It's time to go because you are the guest, right? You are not the host. I am the host, right? I'm the one the host is the one who stays. The host is the one who doesn't leave, right? The guest is the one who comes and goes. Is that clear? All right, now he'll give another metaphor. Again, on a clear day, when the sun rises and the sunlight enters a dark room through an opening, one can see dust in empty space, right? You understand? You understand dust. You can see it, in the sunlight, right? The dust is moving, but the space is still, right? The empty space is still, but there's dust moving. You can see the dust moving. That which is clear and still, we call space. That which is moving, we call dust, because moving is the essence of the nature of dust. Okay, are we clear? So he's giving us two ways to understand something. I think you know where he's moving to. This is very profound. But because we are such idiots and blockheads, he's got to kind of go, all right, let's slow it down. Everybody understand what a guest is and what a host is. All right, works out a little bit. Then he goes, let's try another one just in case they didn't get it. Everybody would know what dust is. And then you see how, and this is a master, right? He understands the profundities of the Dharma. And yet look the lengths he goes to explain to idiots like ourselves, He is compassionate, right? We would think he'd have better ways to spend his time, but they do it because they're trying to help us see something that is so obvious to them that is not obvious to us at all, right? So these are wonderful analogies to help us. All right, so let's, following in his footsteps, is everybody clear between the distinction between host and guest, dust and space? Good. Now, guest and dust refer to illusory thoughts, whereas host and space refer to self-nature. Okay? Our self-nature, our mind nature, the nature of our mind, that always, like space, like the host, that never leaves. Okay. But that which comes and goes, like the guest, like dust, those are our thoughts, our illusory thoughts. And we could add in emotion, the whole range of mental phenomena, things that arise in the mind. They are guests, right? They just come and go. They are not permanent. Well, let me read it. Okay. That the permanent host does not follow the guest in their comings and goings illustrates the permanent self-nature does not follow illusory thoughts in their fleeting rise and fall. Right? So, forget about the decades we've been alive. Just take today. Did your true mind nature follow and is still present to every thought that arose in your mind? No. Right? Right? Where are all your thoughts? All the ones you thought today. Where are they? Where are all your thoughts, Haley? Gone, right? But you're still here, right? You're still here, you're still aware, right? You're still present. So that stays. And all those thoughts, good ones, bad ones, happy ones, sad ones, gone, right? Is that true? Yeah, so that's what he's saying. Please look, right? You didn't follow them. You don't know where they are even, do you? No, you have no idea where they are. You see, that shows us, right? It's like after our guests leave, we don't know where they go, do we? We don't know what they're doing. Right? Okay. The permanent host does not follow the guest in their comings and goings. Illustrates that permanent self-nature does not follow illusory thoughts in their fleeting rising and falling. Therefore, it was said, quote, if one is unaffected by all things, then there will be no obstructions, even when one is constantly surrounded by things. Let me say that again. Therefore, it was said, if one is unaffected by all things, then there will be no obstructions, even when one is constantly surrounded by things. Right. So we are the host. Guests come. Right? Some guests are what? Very pleasant. Right? You may have some guests that are less than pleasant. Right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? But you say to yourself what? It's only 24 more hours. Right? Right? 2 days they'll be gone. Right? You know that they have no permanence. So we are much more what? Tolerant of them. Right? Because we know what? They're going to go. Right? So we can continue to be kind and put up with all kinds of craziness, right? And be attentive, right? Because, we know this is not forever. If it was forever, we may have a different attitude. Is that clear? So you understand, we know that. We know the illusory impermanence of our guests. So therefore, we don't, if we're at our best, we're not affected by whatever their nonsense is, or craziness is, or dramas are. We're just present and attentive, and we listen and compassionate, right? And remind ourselves that they'll be leaving tomorrow, Is that clear? So we're not affected in any deep way. And we can actually be at our best in how we respond to them. If one is unaffected by things, if one is unaffected by the guests, then there will be no obstructions. Meaning obstructions in our mind. It will just continue to flow easily and naturally. The opposite of flow is to get stuck, to get fixated. Dzogchen talks about fixation. The mind gets fixed. Do you notice when your mind gets fixed, you get fixed on something? And that's drama, and that's fixation, and that's repetition, and that's obsession, right? Right? There's no flow. The mind has been affected by the guest, right? We've let the guests get to us. Anybody ever have their guests get to them? Okay, right? It's because in that moment you forgot to tell yourself, they're just guests. Sometimes they leave a big mess. Well, yeah. So then we have to clean it up. Right? So, part 2 is be careful about who you invite. Right? At this point, we don't have good mind training, good mind control to really be able to really kind of be in charge of the guest list, so to speak. We're sort of, we're sort of like the innkeeper, right? Whoever shows up, we have to deal with, right? But in time, we can be more selective about our invite list. Therefore it was said, if one is unaffected by all things, then there will be no obstructions, even when one is constantly surrounded by things. Okay? We can have many guests in our mind, and we just let them come and go, because we know they're illusory. They have no permanence. They have no solidity. They just come and go. Everybody in this room, if you reflected on it, would know that, right? Everybody in this room has had millions, hundreds of thousands. How many, Alex? Thoughts? Right?
30,000 per day.
Per day. So times how many, times 365, times your age, and you get a sense. Well, take off the first years. Right? Where are they all? Every one of them. Every one of them is gone, has disappeared. Is that not true? I mean, there's the proof. They are illusory. They have no permanence. They're just temporary guests. They're just dust motes in the space of our mind. And yet what? We confuse guest and host. The moving dust does not block the clear, still empty space. Right? So even if there was, and sometimes we're amazed, right? Sometimes when the sunlight comes in, we're amazed how much dust there is in the air, right? It's like, wow. And yet we see through it. I mean, it's not, we can still see, right? We still see everything. It doesn't take up the whole space, even though there's a lot of dust. Right? Space is bigger. Our mind nature is bigger. Our awareness is bigger, right, than these thoughts. The moving dust does not block the clear, still empty space. Illusory thoughts which rise and fall by themselves do not hinder the self-nature of suchness. Thus it was said, quote, if my mind does not arise, all things are blameless. How wonderful. Right? We blame phenomena for our mental issues, don't we? Right? We see situations, things, people are the cause. We hold everything to blame. But if the mind, meaning the mind, does not arrive and grasp, right? There's no one to blame because there's nothing gets in. Right? I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on dust. But is there always dust in the air? I mean, there must be, right? It's just when the sunlight comes in, we see it, sometimes more or less. But, I mean, there's always dust in the air, right? Isn't that why we have hair in our nostrils or something? I'm trying to think about high school science. Isn't that the... Thank you. There it is. So, dust in the air is a condition of life. And yet we function quite well with it. It doesn't obstruct us. We don't bump into it. We live quite in harmony with the dust in the air. Right? If it became very thick and opaque, then it would be problematic. Right? Which is a good, again, analogy for what do. If thoughts arising and passing in space of our mind is not a problem. But many of us get blocked. We weave this wall and we think it's solid. But if it was solid, it would still be here. How many people in this room have felt a solidity about their mind states, their emotions, their issues, their stuff? Right? But but if they were solid, they'd still be here. If they were solid, permanent things. But they're not here, which is proof that they're not solid. But we weave this illusion of solidity, and then we feel stuck. And we don't understand that it's our own creation. It's our own doing that's causing us to suffer and to fixate and to get stuck and to have issues and problems and emotional afflictions. Right? We think everything else is to blame, including our illusory self. I mean, if we can't blame everybody else, who do we blame? We blame ourselves. So we're always finding somebody to blame. Right? But if we, think about all the issues from childhood on that have occurred to us, that have happened to us, that we've experienced. Right? You know what I'm talking about? What if we had this kind of wisdom way back then, and maybe even up to last week, that whatever happened to us, good, bad, indifferent, we understood that whatever is happening to me right now is impermanent. It will go. It will disappear. It will come to an end. And we didn't fixate on it. Would there be trauma? No. It's amazing. There wouldn't be. We get traumatized by life because we fixate on the experience. Right? And again, not that we want to suffer. We don't know better. I'm not, it's just that we don't know better. We fixate. But if we had, had learned this early on, we would have just, it would have been a bad experience. But it would have, and then we would have just, moved on. Right. Fortunately, we can learn this now. And we can apply this wisdom to all the things that are arising in our mind right now, from now forward. None of them have any solidity. Right? All our issues, all our hurts, all our disappointments, all our resentments, all our angers, all our fears. What? Dust. Yes. Now, the deep problem for all of us, and this is why last night is important, and some sense of who and what we are, is our problem is we only know ourselves as the guests. You see our problem. We identify as the guest. We don't have a clue about there's a host. Right? There is a mind and a mind nature in which all this is arising, and it is always here. Right? We never look and ask ourselves, all these thoughts and feelings and emotions, and what is it that is experiencing all that? See, what is that? Or what is this? See, that's the fundamental issue of meditation. To know the host, to know the space. You see? So, to only know, like many of you have probably heard before. Anybody ever hear before, all thoughts are illusory, all thoughts are impermanent? Anybody ever hear that? You see, but if we don't know the other one, if we don't know the host, if we don't know the space, and if we don't know that's who and what we really are, then what are we stuck with? We're still stuck with dealing always with this guest because that's all we see. Is that clear? So it's logical why, for many of us, there are probably many people in this room who go, I know better, right? I've known this for years, and yet still what? Still get caught, still fixate, still get trapped, still get into the emotional spirals. Alex calls it what? Amygdala hijacking, right? Is that what you call it, Joseph? Yeah, thank you. Hopefully he's moved on since then. You go, why still? Right? It's because we haven't really, that's all we know. And even though we can put a label on it, right, and we know it, we still don't have anything else to bring to the table, so to speak. Hmm? Thus it was said, if my mind does not arise, meaning this grasping, attaching mind does not arise, all things are blameless. Right? Things are just things. Life is just life. People just do what they do. Right? Isn't that true? Including us. Can I repeat what? I have no idea what I said. People do what they do. There you go. Right. Life is just life. Life is just unfolding. Unfolds what? According to causes and conditions. That's all that's going on. Right? That's all that's going on. And any meaning we ascribe to bad, good, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, is all the mind grabbing on. We're endlessly trying to make sense of things according to our own very narrow framework, as opposed to really seeing the truth. Things are just arising because of causes and conditions. That person is who they are because of their causes and conditions. The situation is arising because of causes and conditions, because of the world's causes and conditions. I mean, isn't that true? Right? Unless you have a kind of an ancient belief that we are the plaything of the gods, right? And there are gods up there on Mount Olympus or something, good ones and bad ones, and they're controlling the whole thing. There could be some people, I don't know, who believe that. But if you don't believe that, then you have to see that the causes and conditions of everything in life is fortunately and unfortunately conditioned by the beings in it. Yes.
In the practice of letting go of
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and concepts, that seems pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions seem harder.
I know
seem
they
to
do.
be more in the body and not just easily.
Yeah.
So can you speak?
Yeah. So the question is emotions. And emotions, in Buddhist psychology, they're called kleshas, the afflictive emotions. Kleshas means coverings. It's so profound. They're coverings. So, which is what you're talking about. That when they're present, they sort of cover up reality. So, the klesha, it's the Sanskrit word, are these coverings, right? And it describes really kind of our experience. That's why they're dangerous. Right, that's why we're warned against them, right? Because when they come upon us with some intensity, they really cover us. They cover up our reasoning, our intellect, our years of practice, our positive intentions, all the things, right? They're covering, so they're very dangerous. I mean, in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, they do have the same nature of impermanence and emptiness. They are illusory in the sense that, they are guests. I mean, you've had many emotions in your life. You haven't had one constant one nonstop. So they do come and go according to cause and conditions. They do have their illusory nature. They are, one of our biggest enemies too, really walking a noble path and leading a noble life and leading a wholesome life. Because, right? And so we have a lot to say about afflictive emotions. I don't know if we want to go into it now, but just understanding, but they do have that same nature. And if one's, again, certainly there's a lot we can do very consciously to reduce our cultivation of afflictive mind states. Right? Now, I'm not talking about when, what's it called, Alex, again? The amygdala hijacking has occurred in big time, when you're deep in it. But for most of us, that is really not our emotional life. I mean, most of the time it's a lower scale, less intense. And so, our ability to really identify the afflictive emotions and to really be clear, I don't want to cultivate them anymore. They rob me of my peace of mind. They rob me of my compassion. They rob me. And so we get better and better at identifying them when they come up, right? And talking back to that little big ego that's always telling us how justified we are in feeling that way. I mean, so that's, there's a lot of freedom in that and a lot of capacity for changing. And my sense that will, over time, affect the bigger ones. Because if you think about when it really gets big, they're just a more intense variation of what's more smaller. And they have a relationship. So I think the more we're able to, not cultivate the negativity and the afflictive, will have a lot of effect on how often we get hijacked. As well, and I've said this before, Buddhist psychology puts more stress on cultivating the wholesome, the non-afflictive, than working with the afflictive. We have to work with the afflictive. But, cultivating the wholesome mind states, the opposite of, is also transforming. And I use the analogy, again, we know there are many, 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 many kind of medical issues that people have, right, that will go away by themselves if we follow healthy diet, healthy exercise, mind state, what I mean? There's lots of proof to show that a lot of the things we're going to the doctor for, we would never have, even heart condition, diabetes, I mean, lots of big stuff, if people were just more proactive in their health, right? You understand that. So it's the same thing is true for our mind. I think if we're more proactive in cultivating a wholesome mind, there's less opportunity for these afflictions to also arise, right? But at the end of the day, even though they seem to be solid, they are not, right? And one can get better at labeling them, knowing them when they arise, knowing when the storm is present, and just taking cover, right? I mean, I think a lot of times, you may not be able to prevent what has arisen. It's arisen. Why is it arisen? Because we've cultivated it in the past. It's part of our makeup. But in this moment, am I going to, like Shanti Deva says, be a log. I mean, there it is. It's like, my commitment is not to say anything or do anything. Be a log. I mean, that in a way, that's what I mean when I say it's sort of like we hunker down. You know, we know the storm's going to pass. It's just a guest. You know, and if I don't feed it, it will pass. And over time, it will get less and less and less and less. So I think that's important too, that we have a strategy for the storm. Okay. Can you just hold it? I just want to finish the verse, and then we'll take a few questions. So thus it was said, if my mind does not arise, all things are blameless. If one understands space and dust, illusory thoughts will no longer be hindrances. If one can investigate and understand all this before starting to practice, it is unlikely that one will make serious mistakes. Okay. So can you see it's sort of conceptual. What he's giving us a kind of a conceptual package here. How we look at our thoughts. Do we stop looking at them as permanent, stable things? Or do we start looking at them as just illusory, impermanent things that come and go? Do we see our thoughts as guests? Now, we'll be spending more time over these next days talking more about the host. Okay, but this is very important. And you don't need to be a fully enlightened Buddha to get this. Again, everybody knows the difference between a guest and a host. Ghosts are something else. It's getting close to Halloween, but we're not. Does everybody know the difference between a guest and a host? Does everybody know the difference between dust and space? Okay. Can we begin to apply the same criteria to our minds? To know that within our minds, there is a host, that which stays. Right, Robbie? You're still here. Your mind's still here. You're still aware. And all those things, all those afflictive mind states, and all those positive mind states, and all, they've gone. They're not here. Right? They are the guests. And wisdom is being able to, wisdom is not after the fact. Wisdom is before the fact, right? Many of us are wise after the fact. That doesn't qualify as wisdom. I mean, it could be, one has an insight, but to be a wise person, to have real wisdom, it means we see it coming. We're wise. We see what's going on, and we know how to act appropriately. Right? And that's what we want. So, we look back over the decades of our life to see the illusory, impermanent coming and going of all our mind states, all our thoughts, all our feelings, endlessly, arising and passing. And we know they're all gone. Our true nature has not followed them because we're still here. They're gone. There's the proof. Now, wisdom is when they arise right now, and when you're in meditation, you will see them. They will arise. Now, can you see them as guests, as dust motes, and just let them be? Not grab at them, not attach to them, not fixate on them, right? Not push them away. Just guess. We're at ease. Right? It's like, we have an open door policy. But we keep the back door also wide open. Come through, out the door, It's all open, right? All the windows are open, the doors are open. They can come in, they can go out. Right? Like that. That's the kind of mind we want to cultivate. Open. And maybe some of you got a little taste of it last night, just having an open, spacious, relaxed mind. Just let things come and go. Sounds come and go. Smells come and go. Thoughts come and go. Feelings come and go. Don't grab onto anything. Be like space. Don't be like the dust. Be like the host. Right? Come in. Just point to the door. That way. Right? Okay, so is everybody clear? This is simple but profound, and it's meant to be taken into your practice. Yes, Alice.
Thank you for the brilliant teachings by Xiu Yin. But we live in a relationship. We don't live in a cave. So you have.
He didn't. Now hold on. He did not live in a cave. He spent some time in a cave where he got this, but he was a very active. And if you read his life, you will see he makes your life look slothful. I mean, he was much more active than you, Alex, and much more involved in things than you. Please read his life, okay?
So you have guest and you have host.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you put relatives?
Well, relatives are just guests, Alec. They're just guests. Don't elevate them. See, I can see already what you're doing. You're elevating them, going, oh, you see, it's the relatives. It's the close relationships. They're the, They're blameless. They're blameless. Right? I mean, this is not relationship counseling. I'm not that's another whole area. Sharon can deal with that one. But, but in terms of what we're dealing with, and just in terms of our mind, I mean, this is about the mind. We got to get this first. Then you can take it out into the world. But he's really talking about our mind, where it all begins, right? Any issues we have in our relationships, they begin in the mind, and how the mind is processing whatever is happening in the world, right? And when we understand our mind, that's what he's talking about. It'll make it much easier. But you can't start doing special case. But this is a special case. No. Alex, host, keep it simple. So you're complex. You always got to host. Okay, repeat after me. Host and guest. Dust and space. All right, there you go. Not easy. See, it's not easy for you. Let's do that again. Okay. Okay. Let's all do it together. Okay. So Alex doesn't feel like he's been picked on. Okay. Host and guest. There you go. Dust and space. It's all right. It's the same for all of us. Okay. Keep it simple. And as you watch your mind, that which is watching is the host. That which is arising and passing is the guest. Identify with the host, and we'll talk more about that. Any other questions? Yes.
I was just, so in the prerequisites, he talks about the importance of understanding impermanence.
Right.
And in describing the host and the self-nature, the word permanent was used twice.
Yeah.
I was just, could you say more about that?
Well, for now, let it. Oh, so the question is, which is a good question. It's on the one hand, we have this fundamental teaching of Buddhism that nothing is solid and permanent, and then we hear him referring to the host, or self-nature, as being permanent. And you're going, hold on. Did I just catch the great master Xiu Yin in a contradiction? Yeah, but it's a good question. Our self-nature is not a thing. It's not a phenomena. We're talking about what are called in Buddhism Dharma, small d, phenomena. There are physical phenomena and there are mental phenomena. Right? But my nature is not a phenomena. That is why Bodhidharma, when asked who he really was, said, "Don't know." There's obviously something here. We're aware of each other. Right? We understand each other. There's a knowing. But if you look for the thing that knows, you will never find it. That is the great mystery. It is not a thing. And yet it's always here. Always here, always been here, always will be here, uncreated. Sort of like the way Christians would talk about God. Right? No beginning, no end. Right? It's beyond thought. And yet it is. So Christians talk about God, perhaps. I don't know. But, we talk about Buddha nature. And it's the same words. Pointing to the same thing. Just different words. Good. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for translating those teachings so beautifully. Thank you for your guidance.
Well, please take it with you. So anything else before we end the Dharma talk? So please, perhaps you want to be reflecting about do you have the prerequisites? And if you don't, you can reflect a little bit because they're important. And most importantly for our meditation practice, to really understand host and guest, dust and space, in relationship to your own mind nature, true nature, that which is aware, and all the things that arise in it, and to see them as host and guest, dust and space. Guests come and go. Good guests come and go. Bad guests come and go. Right? If the mind does not arise, meaning doesn't arise and grasp, avert, all things are blameless. It's a hard one, isn't it? We love to blame. Right. But all things are blameless. Very profound. Points to a place of deep peace. Right. Deep, deep peace. All things are blameless. Yes?
Causes and conditions, can you not blame them?
If you want, you can. I'm not going to take away your freedom to be angry and hurt. But causes and conditions, Shantideva says, they have no arms and legs. They're not real things. They're just causes and conditions. And all the causes that you want to blame are there because of prior causes. Who do you blame? Right? If you blame your parents, well, they were created by their parents, so you'd have to blame them. And you'd have to blame their culture and their society. You'd have to blame. But even to hold them responsible, you'd have to realize, but they were caused by. So let's go back to the grandparents and their culture. You see what I'm saying? And it's like at a certain point you go, causes and conditions. Right? It's just causes and conditions. And there's nobody to blame. And there's great liberation in that. Right? There's no one to blame. And at the deeper levels of Dharma, there's no one that's affected by that either. Self and other, all empty. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I just want to ask if you would somehow give us the reference. I don't.
The reference to
what you just spoke. You said it was taken out of a book. The teacher, the name of the book, and even
Oh.
that particular part might be. So if we want to go back and read it and reflect on it.
Yeah, just do me a favor. After retreat, just email me and I can send it out to everybody.
Okay.
All right. I just don't have it here. I just made a copy of that. Okay. But I'm happy to do that. Yes.
I can't remember all four. I'm supposed to remember mine.
deep confidence in the law of cause and effect, strict observance of the precepts, immovable confidence, faith in one's true nature, the one's capacity to awake, and choosing a Dharma door method of practice. Okay? Good. So, thank you. We'll end for today.